Flight 666, Descent into Hell. Part 1, 40 minutes. It always happened at minute 40. That was the rule. That was the curse. And unless someone stopped it, it would happen again. Somewhere above Montana, Flight 666 from Los Angeles to Boston screamed through the clouds. Seatbelt signs glowed red. The plane shivered as it sliced through an angry sky, but turbulence wasn't what kept the hunter's fingers clenched on the armrest. Jack Rener wasn't afraid of flying. He'd fought skinwalkers in the desert, exorcised a cannibal ghost from a hotel room in Duluth, and shot a revenant point-blank in a church crypt. But this was different. This was a demon. And if he didn't find the vessel before the 40-minute mark, 206 souls would be falling out of the sky with their flesh flayed from the inside. Because that's what it did. The first sign had come 20 minutes in, a whisper that wasn't carried by the intercom. Row 12. A little girl started crying. Not because she was scared. Because her brother, sitting beside her, turned to her and whispered, "You're going to burn with them." He was 6 years old. And his eyes? Jet black. No whites. No pupils. Just liquid obsidian staring out like bottomless pits. That was the tell. Every victim the demon took wore the same look, an innocent face with eyes like oil spills. Beautiful on the surface, death underneath. Jack moved fast. He pushed past the flight attendants with his bag, headed down the aisle like a man possessed. Every step was a countdown. 20 minutes left. The demon never stayed in the same host for long. It hopped, child to parent, passenger to passenger, feeding off fear, accelerating the breakdown. It wasn't just after one life. It wanted chaos. It wanted screams. By the time Jack reached row 12, the boy's eyes were normal again. Blue. Human. But the mother sitting next to him had her hand clamped over her mouth. Her shoulders twitched with silent laughter. Jack reached into his coat and pulled out a small vial of holy water. Flicked a few drops. The woman sizzled. Smoke curled from her lips. A low growl vibrated beneath her skin, like something ancient was buried in her bones. She snapped her head toward Jack. Her eyes were black now. "You're too late, Hunter." The voice wasn't hers. It wasn't anyone's. It was like a pit speaker, like fire echoing through a throat filled with gravel. Jack didn't wait. He muttered the first line of the prayer. "Saint Michael Archangel, defend nos in proelio." The demon shrieked and launched from the seat. The child beside her screamed. The other passengers pulled back, some grabbing their phones, others fumbling with seatbelts. The demon-possessed woman climbed over seats like a spider. Jack gave chase. The flight attendants tried to stop him. They had no idea what was happening. But Jack threw open the galley curtain and followed her into the first-class cabin. The lights flickered. The air turned heavy. This was it. She stood at the end of the aisle, head cocked, smiling with teeth too sharp for her human face. 40 minutes, she hissed. That's all I need. To drag them all down. Jack reached into his coat and pulled out the silver crucifix, engraved with Latin. The prayer was etched into the metal. His fingers bled from how tightly he gripped it. He began the rite. The prayer wasn't just words. It was fire. It came from bloodlines that had hunted demons for centuries. Exorcizo te, omnis spiritus in nomine Dei Patris. The demon flinched, screamed. Smoke poured from the woman's ears. Her body convulsed, lifted off the ground. The plane shuddered with her. Jack pushed forward, his voice louder now, the crucifix glowing faintly as the words took hold. The demon thrashed. "You can't stop it," it howled. "I'll crash it just like the others. 40 minutes! 40 minutes! Recede, Satana, inventor et magister omnis fallaci." The woman's body collapsed. The demon ripped free as black smoke, bursting upward into the cabin. It vanished into the vents. Jack dropped to his knees, panting. One flight attendant sobbed in the corner. Another held the possessed woman's head, whispering, trying to wake her. Jack checked his watch. 29 minutes. It was still on the plane. Still looking for a new host. Still counting down. And somewhere above the clouds, 205 lives were flying straight toward hell. Part 2. The Black-Eyed Passenger. 31 minutes in. Jack's heart hammered like a jackrabbit against his ribs. His crucifix burned cold in his palm, a sure sign the demon was still close. Still feeding. The exorcism hadn't worked. Not completely. It never did the first time. Because this thing, whatever name it once had before it was swallowed by the pit, it didn't want to possess just one person. It wanted to ride the whole plane into hell. He stood in the narrow aisle as turbulence rocked the plane. Passengers stared at him, some frightened, some angry. "What the hell's going on?" a man in a suit demanded from row 4. Jack ignored him. He scanned the rows, searching faces, watching eyes. Every twitch, every breath. The demon could be anyone now. Anyone. It had moved before the prayer finished. That's why it didn't burn. And now, somewhere aboard Flight 666, it was hiding. Preparing. Waiting for minute 40. Jack ducked into the bathroom and locked the door behind him. Pulled a small leather pouch from his coat. Tools of the trade. Holy water, blessed salts, a rosary wrapped in silver chain, and 3 prayer cards burned along the edges. He pressed his bleeding thumb to the mirror, smeared the sign of the cross. "You know I'm here," he whispered. "You feel it, don't you?" Behind his own reflection, the light flickered. For just a second, the mirror twitched. A different face. A woman with black eyes, smiling with stitched lips. Then she was gone. 33 minutes. He pushed back into the aisle. The mother who'd been possessed was unconscious now, sedated by a flight medic who'd happened to be on board. The boy clung to her arm. Jack stopped beside them. "You see it?" he asked the child. The boy hesitated, then nodded slowly. "She's not the only one," he whispered. "The man in the green jacket." Jack's stomach dropped. He looked left. Row 17. A man wearing a forest green windbreaker was just sitting there, sipping ginger ale, reading a paperback. Too calm. Too still. Jack moved. "Excuse me, sir," Jack said. The man looked up. Mid-30s. Pale. Calm smile. "Can I help you?" Jack didn't answer. He opened the vial. Flicked a drop of holy water onto the man's hand. It sizzled. and the man's smile widened, way too far, splitting at the edges. The passenger screamed. His eyes turned black. Jack lunged as the demon flung the drink cart across the aisle. Chaos erupted. The man hissed and bolted toward the cockpit. "No!" Jack shouted, giving chase. The possessed man shoved through screaming passengers. A stewardess reached out. The demon snapped her wrist with a crack. Then it vanished into the cockpit. The door slammed shut. Locked. 35 minutes. Jack reached the door, breath ragged. Inside, the pilot's voice shouted something, then cut off. The click of the intercom system buzzed to life. And then the demon's voice filled the cabin. "Welcome aboard Flight 666. We're currently cruising at 36,000 feet, but we'll be descending shortly. Straight into the flame." Passengers screamed. A baby wailed. Someone started praying. And Jack? Jack grabbed the crucifix, pressed it to the cockpit door, and whispered, "This ends now." He reached into his coat and pulled out the last key, a blessed lockpick. One shot. It could open any sealed door once, no matter the strength of the barrier. He pressed it to the lock, whispered the incantation. The metal glowed, then snapped open. The cockpit stank of sulfur and blood. The co-pilot was slumped over, eyes burned black. The captain was still alive, barely. His hand clutched the control yoke, eyes fluttering. And in the pilot's seat, the demon turned. Its smile was no longer pretending to be human. Its teeth were jagged, needle-thin, its face stretched too wide across the skull. Black eyes like tar pits. It whispered, 40 minutes, Jack? That's all I ever need. 36:12. Jack didn't speak. He lunged. They grappled in the cramped space, limbs crashing against the controls. Altitude alarms blared. The plane dipped violently. Jack shoved the crucifix against the demon's chest. It burned deep, sizzling flesh. But it laughed. "You can't send me back. Not up here. You need ground. You need holy earth." Jack's eyes flared. "No. I need faith." He pulled the last resort from his coat, a sealed parchment etched in ancient Aramaic, blessed by a dying priest under a blood moon. It was never supposed to be used in the sky. But this wasn't just a flight. This was war. He unrolled it and read the words. The cockpit screamed. Reality bent. The demon flailed, smoke pouring from its mouth. The black eyes flickered. "I will come again," it shrieked. "I always do." Then it vanished. Not like smoke. Like ash. Vanished. The captain coughed. Jack caught the yoke, straightened the plane. Altitude alarms stopped screaming. The cabin steadied. 39:58. Jack checked the clock. The demon was gone. This time, for good. Or so he hoped. Part 3. The Passenger Manifest. 12 hours later. Jack sat alone in a secure holding room at Logan International Airport. His coat was drenched with holy water and dried blood. The exorcism scar still burned along his wrist, a reminder that demons didn't just leave scars on souls. The Homeland Security agents outside didn't know what to make of him. They had a priest sitting in the hallway, staring at Jack through the glass like he was a ticking bomb. Jack didn't care. He was focused on the manifest. The official list of everyone aboard Flight 666. There were 38 names crossed out, the ones who had died in past crashes. Because this wasn't the first time. Flight 666 had crashed before. Multiple times. Different cities. Different years. Different victims. And somehow, always the same 40-minute curse. He pulled the photos from his inner coat pocket. Every case. Every incident. Flight 666, Milan to Cairo, exploded midair in 1987. Flight 666, Dallas to Seattle, plummeted from 37,000 feet in 2001. Flight 666, Tokyo to Sydney, vanished from radar in 2012. Each doomed at exactly 40 minutes. Each one had a black box recording of chaos, passengers screaming, alarms blaring, and a final voice whispering in Latin. Descend, sicut fulgur. Apri portam. Descend like lightning. Open the gate. Always the same. Always that voice. The door creaked open. Agent Holden stepped inside, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You saved the plane. Everyone's alive. No one's denying that. Jack didn't look up. But Holden dropped the manifest on the table. We ran the names through Interpol, Homeland, and Vatican archives. We found something. Jack leaned forward. 4 passengers aboard this flight were also booked on previous Flight 666 incidents. Some rebooked at the last minute. Some had no memory of doing so. He flipped to a page. A name circled in red ink. Andrea Calloway. Survivor. Passenger on the Milan crash in 1987. She was 12. Now 48. Booked a window seat on yesterday's flight. No one remembered seeing her. Not even the flight attendants. Jack stood. Where is she now? Holden shook his head. She never got off the plane. He handed Jack a still image from airport security footage. The jet bridge. Andrea Calloway walked into the plane. But there was no footage of her ever leaving it. Later, Jack stood alone on the tarmac under a bruised sky. The aircraft, Flight 666, sat in quarantine, empty, silent. He stepped aboard. Every seat was cold. Still. Cleaned. But row 9A had a smear of ash along the window. He touched it. It stuck to his fingers. And behind the glass, a reflection. Andrea's face. And behind her, black eyes. Jack bolted. The demon hadn't been banished. It had split. It was hiding in the passengers, now spread across the country. It wasn't finished. It was recruiting. He made calls that night. To hunters. Priests. 2 contacts at the Vatican who owed him favors. He gave them a list of names. Names of those who had unknowingly become carriers. You need to track them, he told Father Lorenz. Check their eyes. Burn their clothes. Don't let them fly again. But why? Lorenz asked. Jack closed his eyes. Because Flight 666 wasn't just cursed. It was a ritual. Every crash, every 40-minute descent, it wasn't chaos. It was precision. A demon bound to a number, to an engine, to blood in the sky. There was more than one. This wasn't about one flight. It was about hundreds. A network. Each passenger was a spark. And the next plane would be the firestorm. He packed his gear, stitched up his wounds, and pulled out a map of every scheduled Flight 666 for the next 3 months. 27 flights across 16 countries. Same number of seats. Same 40-minute window. And in one of them, or maybe all, the demon would try again. But Jack would be there, waiting. Because only holy water, a prayer, and iron faith could stop what came screaming through clouds. And next time, he wasn't going to wait for minute 40. He was going to find the demon before it boarded. Part 4, The Unholy Layover. 3 days later, Munich International Airport. Gate A17 was packed. People hunched over phones, nursing coffees, dragging luggage behind them like afterthoughts. But Jack Rener stood still, watching, listening. He wasn't a passenger this time. He was bait. Flight 666 to Johannesburg. Departure scheduled for 2:40 a.m. 40 minutes of sky. 40 minutes until it would try again. He checked his watch. 2:15 a.m. Boarding began in 5 minutes. He had 2 vials of holy water left. A silver rosary soaked in consecrated oil. And the new weapon, a dagger forged from reclaimed church bell bronze, blessed by 3 priests under moonlight. It hummed in his coat pocket like it wanted to be used. Rener. A voice behind him. He turned. It was her. Alex Devereaux, former hunter, exorcist dropout, and the only other person to survive a Flight 666 crash and keep her sanity. She'd been on the Dallas-Seattle route in '01. She was 19 then. Now she was 42. Still looked like she could punch a demon through drywall. You sure it's this one? She asked. Jack nodded. Matches the pattern. 40 minutes. Overnight. Over an untraceable patch of ocean. Manifest includes 2 past survivors. Let me guess, she said. One of them didn't board? Jack's face tightened. No one remembers seeing them at all. Alex looked toward the gate. Damn thing's getting clever. 2:40 a.m. They boarded. The moment Jack stepped onto the plane, he felt it. Pressure. Weight. Like stepping into a submerged chapel. Like the air wasn't oxygen, but memory. The demon was already here. And this time, it wasn't just hiding. It was nesting. The lights dimmed. Flight attendants did the safety speech. Jack scanned faces. A man in first class fidgeted with his ring. A teen girl stared too long at the window. No black eyes. Yet. But demons didn't always need eyes to lie. Sometimes they smiled. 2:47 a.m. The plane took off. Jack felt it immediately. The presence. It rippled down the fuselage like a shiver through metal. He whispered a line of the old rite beneath his breath. Exorcizo te spiritus imund. His crucifix vibrated. The demon was near. And it was watching him. 3:03 a.m., 23 minutes in. He slipped into the lavatory, pried off the mirror panel. Inside the cavity, scrawled in ancient ink. You let me fly. Blood dripped from the corner. Fresh. Still warm. He stepped out, eyes scanning. The teen girl from earlier was now gone. So was the man with the ring. He moved toward the back galley, hard hammering. That's when the first scream ripped through the cabin. It came from the cargo hold, beneath the passengers. Jack ran. Crew tried to stop him. He flashed a fake security badge and dropped a line about a bomb threat. By the time he reached the service hatch, the lights flickered and the temperature dropped 10 degrees. He opened the latch and climbed down. The cargo bay was cold, and in the center, the girl, eyes pitch black, blood smeared on her chin, her mouth open, too wide, and a voice that was not hers echoed. "You're late again, Jack. But don't worry. This time, we brought friends." Shadows peeled off the walls. 3 of them. Possessed passengers. Somehow hidden. Stored like luggage. He'd never seen that before. Multiple vessels on one flight. That meant the demon had multiplied. He backed toward the hatch. Pulled the bronze dagger. One charged, Jack slashed. The blade burned like sunlight. The thing shrieked and evaporated. 2 more lunged. He hurled a vial of holy water. Glass shattered, steam rose. 1 went down. But the girl, she didn't flinch. She just walked forward, smiling. 40 minutes, Jack. Your blood's the last key. Then she leapt. Fangs bare. Not a demon. Not just a hybrid. Something worse. Something born of man and hell. She knocked Jack to the floor. The dagger skittered away. Her hands gripped his throat, nails like obsidian. Jack gasped, vision dimming. And then, Alex appeared behind her. Silver rosary around the girl's neck. Pulled tight. And recited the full rite. The girl screamed. Blood poured from her mouth. Her eyes rolled back. Smoke burst from her skull. And whatever was inside her, it fled. But not before whispering. 1 flight remains. The last gate opens in 7 days. See you on flight 777. The plane landed safely. Barely. Jack and Alex were detained, questioned, released under cover of Vatican clearance. The girl survived, broken, empty, but alive. The others weren't so lucky. Later, Jack sat alone in a motel room outside Munich. He drew a red circle around a new flight. Flight 777. 7 days from now. No destination. No origin. Just one entry in the manifest. Terminal departure. Passenger, Jack Rener. Part 5, Gate of the Forsaken. 6 days later. There was no ticket. No terminal number. No gate printed on paper or digital screen. Jack Rener had been checking airline databases, Vatican logs, even black market occult networks. And all he got was the same response. Flight 777 does not exist. But he knew better. It did exist. Just not here. The only clue was that final whisper. See you on flight 777. The demon hadn't lied. It didn't need to. It just liked watching him struggle to understand. But Jack remembered something the priest from New Orleans had once told him. Some flights don't leave airports. They leave realities. Day 7. Midnight. Jack stood in the middle of an abandoned terminal at an airport no one used anymore. Terminal 13 at the old Heartwood airstrip in Wyoming. Closed since 1993. And yet, the lights were on. An intercom crackled overhead. Final boarding call for Flight 777. Passenger Jack Rener, please proceed to Gate 0. He walked. Slowly. Each step echoed against cracked tile. The signs pointed left, then right, then down a stairwell that shouldn't have been there. He followed it. At the bottom, a single gate. Gate 0. The sign above flickered between languages, Latin, Greek, something older. And in each version, it translated the same way. The Gate of the Forsaken. There was no plane. Just a door. A heavy iron hatch with a window smeared in soot. Jack reached out. The crucifix around his neck turned cold. Not because of what was behind the door, but because it recognized where it led. Not sky. Not air. But hell. He opened it. And stepped through. Inside, rows of empty plane seats suspended in darkness. No walls. No floor. Just space. Passengers sat with heads bowed. Silent. Motionless. Their bodies slack, like puppets between performances. Every one of them had black eyes. Except one. Andrea Calloway. Sitting in 9A, just like before. Her lips trembled as she looked up. Jack, you weren't supposed to come. She stood, and Jack saw that her wrists were wrapped in rosary chains. Her arms bore sigils carved into the skin, old ones, binding marks. They're keeping me here, she whispered. I'm the vessel now. No, Jack said. You're bait. The lights flickered. The passengers turned their heads, all at once, staring at him, black eyes shining. And from every mouth came the same phrase, whispered like breath through teeth. The 40 minutes begin now. A countdown flashed across the ceiling. 40 minutes. 39 minutes and 59 seconds. 39 minutes and 58 seconds. The plane began to move. Not forward. Not upward. Down. Jack grabbed Andrea's hand. We're leaving. Now. I can't, she said. I'm anchored. If I move, the gate collapses. The flight becomes real. It lands. What happens if it lands? Her eyes filled with tears. They all get out. Jack turned. The passengers were standing now. Their jaws unhinged. Skin cracking. Voices layered in thousands of tongues poured from their mouths. Andrea fell to her knees, chanting a prayer through bloodied lips. Jack knew what had to happen. To stop the flight. To crash it in the right direction. He had to exorcise the gate itself. He stood in the aisle, held the crucifix high, and began the rite. Not just over one soul, but over an entire false world. Exorcizo vas, omnes in mundi spiritus. The lights shattered. The plane tilted. Shadows screamed. The countdown flashed faster. 8 minutes and 29 seconds. 6 minutes and 17 seconds. 4 minutes and 2 seconds. A face formed in the darkness over the cockpit, vast, dripping, smiling. It wasn't just the demon. It was the architect. The thing that created Flight 666. Flight 777. Every cursed sky ritual since man first looked up in fear. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, voice trembling. It answered with one word. A name. Spoken in a voice that made blood freeze. "Abaddon." Jack screamed the final line of the rite. Holy light exploded through the cabin. The seats burned. The passengers wailed as they crumbled to ash. The countdown hit 0. And the floor dropped out. Jack fell through darkness. Fell through flame. Fell through memory. Then, silence. He awoke on the tarmac outside the abandoned terminal. Crucifix still hot. Rosary chains coiled beside him like a shed skin. Andrea was gone. And in his hand, a flight ticket. Seat 9A. Destination null. Departure TBD. Jack stood, legs shaking. Looked at the sky. There were no stars. Only a faint, distant sound. The echo of turbines turning. A plane circling just above, invisible to the eye. Still waiting. Still flying. Part 6. Descent past heaven. Jack Rener had seen death. He'd banished demons in salt-lined circles. Sent spirits screaming into the void. Walked through fire. Bled through iron. But this was different. This was below death. After waking on the tarmac outside Terminal 13, he didn't return to the world. Because there was no world. Everything past the runway was gone, erased. The horizon bled red. The sky boiled. And the shadows didn't follow. They led. Flight 777 hadn't crashed. It hadn't landed. It had passed through. And Jack went with it. He walked for hours. Days. Maybe longer. Time broke down here. The air tasted like static. The stars moved like insects under glass. And behind him, always just behind him, he heard the faint whine of jet engines. Turning. Turning. Waiting. Eventually, he found the tower. A spire of metal and bone, rising from black soil. Wrapped in broken wings, propellers, and rusted fuselages. He entered. No doors. Just pressure. Each step downward took him deeper into Abaddon's design. A realm shaped like an airport, but built for souls, not flights. Gate after gate. Row after row of seats nailed into the walls. People, or what used to be people, strapped into them, blindfolded, murmuring the boarding call over and over. Final boarding. All must depart. And there, at the bottom, Andrea Calloway, suspended in a seat hovering above a pit of burning sky, eyes blank, but lips moving, a chant in a language not written in any Bible. She was keeping the rift open, unwillingly, unknowingly, a soul turned key. "Jack," she said without opening her eyes. "It's in me. It's always been. It needed someone born in the air, baptized by flame. I was in the first crash. You were in the last. It's building a new flight," she said. "Not 666. Not 777. The final one. Flight 0. He understood then. Every flight had been a peace. Every crash a ritual. Every soul a spark in Abaddon's grand machine. And now the door was wide open. The next plane wouldn't be steel and wings. It would be spiritual mass transit. A skyborn ark of the damned. Jack approached Andrea. She flinched. "Don't," she said. "If you pull me out, the tower collapses. But if you leave me, the next flight launches. We're already past heaven, Jack. There's no going up from here. Only down." He placed a hand on her shoulder. He whispered the prayer. The one etched in his father's blood. The one meant for a single purpose. To seal the door. Forever. Andrea opened her eyes. They were normal. Human. Tears welled. "Thank you," she said. And then she vanished. Gone. Not burned. Not erased. Released. The tower screamed. Not a sound, a feeling. Metal twisted. Flames reversed into the sky. A black wind tore through the hall, shrieking Abaddon's name backwards through itself. Jack stood in the center of the maelstrom, arms out, crucifix in hand, reciting the rite. In nomine Patris, et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Abyssum claudo. I seal the abyss. Then the tower collapsed. And Jack fell. Not down. Through. He landed in a seat. Plain seat. Standard economy. Seat 13B. He looked around. All passengers asleep. Normal. Peaceful. No black eyes. No chanting. No demons. The seatbelt sign dinged overhead. Welcome to Flight 0. Estimated flight time, forever. Jack turned to the window. Outside, nothing. Not sky. Not stars. Just a reflection. His own face. And behind it, Andrea. Smiling. Not evil. At peace. You stopped the door, Jack. But not the memory. The flight still remembers. And it remembers you. He turned back to the aisle. A flight attendant approached. But her eyes were black. She handed him a ticket. Passenger, Jack Rener. Seat, infinity. Destination, terminal silence. Boarded, upon descent. Jack held the crucifix tightly. Even here. Even now. It still burned. But it also glowed. There was a way out. A final jump. A last emergency exit. But he'd have to break the plane from the inside. And he only had 40 minutes to do it. Part 7, Emergency Exit. 1 second. The countdown began the moment Jack opened his eyes. The cabin looked normal. Rows of passengers, window shades drawn, soft engine hum rolling beneath the floor. But nothing was right. The overhead bins pulsed like lungs. The emergency instruction cards bled at the corners. And every reflection, in tray tables, plastic windows, polished metal, showed the passengers smiling, even though they weren't. Jack's tray table read, "You are here. Seat 13B, emergency exit, sole capacity, 1. Above it, the red sign didn't say exit. It said, Ascension denied. He clutched the crucifix and whispered a prayer. His voice echoed. Too loud. Like the plane was listening. The intercom crackled. Good morning, passenger. You've boarded Flight 0. No turbulence expected. Descent will begin when you remember your worst sin. Then silence. Except the slow hiss of breath through unseen vents. Jack stood. No one stopped him. The passengers didn't move. They weren't people anymore. They were echoes. Souls abandoned mid-flight. Some muttered things beneath their breath. Prayers. Regrets. Others just wept quietly into their tray tables. Row by row, he walked the aisle, looking for a way out, looking for a weak spot. Because there was always a weak spot. Even hell had an emergency hatch. At the back of the plane, past the galley, he found it. A red handle, bolted into the floor. Marked not with letters, but with sigils. Ancient, divine, terrible. He recognized them. Enochian, the language of angels. But these were reversed, twisted into locks. A voice behind him. "You can't open that." He spun. Andrea stood there. Cold, calm, sad. "You survived," Jack whispered. She shook her head. "I'm the safety protocol. A memory stitched into the fuselage." She stepped closer. "If you open that door, everyone here is gone forever. Including you. No return. No afterlife. Just nothing." Jack glanced around. The passengers hadn't moved. Not one. He reached for the handle anyway. Andrea grabbed his arm. Her grip was ice. "Think, Jack. This plane only flies because someone remembers. It exists because you do." His throat tightened. "You're saying I made this?" She nodded. "You and every other hunter who's failed. Every exorcist who prayed too late. Every victim who died at minute 40. This plane is built from all of you." Jack let that sit. Then, "I'm not leaving them here." Andrea's eyes shimmered. "You can't save them all. I can try." He knelt by the hatch. The sigils began to burn under his hand. But so did the crucifix. They clashed, light and dark, angelic and infernal. He spoke a single line. "Et porta inferi non prevalabundant versus E, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." The handle turned. Screaming erupted. Not from the passengers. From the plane itself. Lights shattered. Oxygen masks fell. But each one whispered lies in Latin. No God listens. No blood saves. No prayer holds. Jack wrenched the hatch open. Wind screamed. Light poured in. Real light. Not holy. Not hellish. Just sky. Actual sky. Blue. Endless. Unreachable. Unless. He turned. Saw them. The passengers. Awake now. No black eyes. Just faces. Tired. Human. Andrea nodded. "Go." Jack didn't hesitate. He reached into his coat. Pulled out the last rosary. Wrapped it around the hatch lever. Said the prayer backwards, sealing the exit open. "Let those who remember rise." And then he jumped. There was no falling. No scream. Just a moment of silence. A pause. And then, light. Jack Rener awoke in a hospital bed. Heart monitor beeping. Crucifix heavy around his neck. On the table beside him, a single flight ticket. Burned at the edges. Unreadable. Except for one line. Emergency exit used. The news played on the TV. Miraculously, the passengers of the missing Flight 777 reappeared today outside the abandoned Hartwood terminal. Officials are baffled. All 212 souls accounted for, including 2 who died in crashes decades ago. Jack smiled, then whispered, "One flight left." Because deep down, he knew Flight 666 wasn't done. There's always another boarding call. Part 8, Final Descent. 1 month later. The world moved on. The miracle of Flight 777 made headlines for a week. People cried, embraced, swore they'd seen angels in the terminal light. But Jack Rener knew better. It wasn't a miracle. It was a delay. Because something didn't stay sealed. Something got out. He kept dreaming of engines. Of windless planes screaming across black skies. Of a red light blinking. Final descent initiated. And every time he woke, he found something new beside his bed. A feather, soaked in oil. A seatbelt buckle still warm. A boarding pass with his name, punched and torn. Then came the letter. No return address. Just one sentence written in ancient ink. You've grounded the passengers, Jack. But the pilot still flies. Attached. One final ticket. Destination, Flight 666. Seat 1A. Gate none? He went. Of course he did. Because hunters don't run. Especially when it's their fault the door cracked in the first place. Midnight. Terminal 0. Back where it all started. The air was thick. Heavy with static and graveyard cold. The terminal was empty, not abandoned, just drained. And yet, the plane was waiting. Jet black. No windows. A fuselage made of something that moved when you looked too long. A stewardess stood beside the boarding bridge. Her eyes were hollow. Her smile never blinked. Welcome back, Mr. Rener. The captain's been expecting you. He boarded alone. 1 seat. First class. 1A. The rest of the cabin was shadow. No passengers. Just names. Carved into every seat like gravestones. Names of hunters. Priests. Victims. And right above Jack's seat, burned into the cabin wall. Abaddon. The plane took off in silence. No wheels. No runway. Just ascent into darkness. Up and up, until there was no sky. Only the space between salvation and damnation. The cockpit door creaked open. Jack stood, walked toward it. Inside, the pilot waited. Not a demon. Not anymore. Something older. Something that once was an angel. Wings clipped by pride. Eyes like broken stars. A smile that stretched across eternity. You've come to take the controls, Abaddon said. Jack didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. You grounded the flights. You saved the souls. But this plane isn't for them. The cabin behind Jack began to hum. Seats folded inward. Screwed themselves shut. Chains coiled along the walls like serpents. This wasn't a plane. It was a prison. Built to house a pilot who refused to fall. Jack reached into his coat. The last dagger. Bell metal. Drenched in oil. Blessed by every survivor he'd saved. He drove it into the console. Holy fire surged through the cockpit. The controls melted, the windows cracked, and the plane began to fall. Abaddon laughed. You think crashing me matters? No, Jack said. But where you're going, there are no runways left. The plane screamed downward. Black lightning tore the sky. Alarms wailed in tongues no human should understand. Jack took his seat, fastened the belt, clutched the crucifix, and whispered the last prayer ever spoken in the air. May this be the flight that never ends. The plane hit. But not earth, not fire. It struck silence and vanished. No wreckage was ever found. No black box. No smoke. But the sky's been quieter ever since. No more Flight 666. No more midnight departures. No more passengers with eyes like tar. Some say Jack Rener's still flying. Alone. Trapped in a holy loop. Crashing again and again, keeping the pilot from ever taking another soul. A hunter turned martyr. And if you listen, really late at night, when a plane flies overhead, you might hear it. Just under the roar of engines. A voice. Tired. Calm. Praying.